What if the world's biggest ideas started with a small act of care? A simple question from a child. A rivalry that turned into a friendship. A promise between brothers. This episode isn't just about tools and machines. It's about people. People who lifted each other up, and in doing so, lifted all of us. Because behind every eureka is often a handshake, a hug, or a heart. Let us begin with the first story, the Wright brothers, a bond that took flight. Dayton, Ohio, 1899. The story begins in a humble bicycle shop, where grease-stained hands and restless minds turned cogs and dreams into something far greater. Two brothers, Wilbur and Orville, stood side by side, bound not just by blood, but by an obsession that flickered like a candle in the wind, flight. Wilbur, the thinker, saw the world in angles and equations, his mind dissecting the secrets of the skies. Orville, the tinkerer, brought those visions to life with nimble fingers and relentless curiosity. They argued, oh how they argued, but never against each other. Only with each other, two halves of the same relentless engine. They studied wings like poets study verse, tracing the arc of feathers, the bend of the breeze. Their first gliders were clumsy things, wooden skeletons wrapped in fabric, hurling themselves into the wind only to be dashed against the sand. They crashed. They rebuilt. They crashed again. The world wasn't watching. Most people laughed. What madness, to think man could fly. But the brothers didn't need the world. They had each other. And then came Kitty Hawk. A desolate stretch of dunes where the wind howled like a living thing. A fragile machine, trembling on the edge of possibility. And then, a gust. A lurch forward. 20 feet of flight, 12 seconds of defiance against gravity itself. It wasn't just science. It wasn't just a machine leaving the Earth. It was brotherhood, given wings. Next we look at the Polaroid camera, a daughter's simple question. A father and daughter, walking on vacation. The air was warm, the light golden. One of those perfect moments that begged to be remembered. The little girl raised a bulky camera, clicked the shutter, and then, with the innocence only a child could wield, turned to her father and asked, "Daddy, why can't I see it now?" A simple question. A father's shrug. But for Edwin Land, Harvard dropout, optical genius, a man who saw the world through prisms and possibilities, that question lingered. It curled around his thoughts like smoke, refusing to fade. Why couldn't a photograph be immediate? Why couldn't memory and moment exist as one? He obsessed. He sketched. He bent over workbenches in the dead of night, chasing an idea that seemed impossible, light and chemistry conspiring to defy time. Film that didn't wait. A picture that breathed into existence right before your eyes. Then, 1947. A sheet of film, a whispered chemical reaction, and there it was. An image blooming like a flower in real time. A face, a smile, a memory, alive in the palm of a hand. The Polaroid was born. Not in some sterile corporate lab. Not through cold calculation alone. But in the space between a father's love and a daughter's question. And suddenly, the world could hold its moments, instantly. Also, we proceed by looking into the story of Google, born in a dorm room. Stanford, 1996. The air was thick with ambition, caffeine, and the hum of dial-up modems. Two graduate students, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, crossed paths. And at first, sparks flew. But not the good kind. They clashed. They debated. They argued over algorithms like rival philosophers. Larry, the methodical engineer. Sergey, the bold mathematician. Opposites in rhythm, but united by one relentless question. How do you make sense of the internet's chaos? Then, somewhere between heated whiteboard sessions and late-night pizza, the friction turned to fire. Collaboration. They worked in the shadows of night, hijacking Stanford servers, crashing systems, trading sleep for code. Their project? A humble experiment called Backrub. Catchy? Revolutionary? Absolutely. It crawled the web, ranking pages not by popularity, but by connections, a digital mirror of how ideas spread in the real world. And then, like a synapse firing, it evolved. Backrub became Google. A name born from a misspelled number, A Google, the unimaginably large. Fitting really, because what they built wasn't just a search engine. It was a compass for the internet age. A way for the world to find itself. And it wasn't crafted in a corporate boardroom. It was born in a dorm room, fueled by curiosity, stubbornness, and the kind of friendship that changes everything. We shall proceed in the same light to consider the story of Kevlar, born in the lab, backed by trust. The lab was quiet, save for the slow swirl of a beaker in Stephanie Kwolek's steady hands. The mixture inside was thick, strange, wrong by most standards. Cloudy where it should have been clear. Weak-looking where strength was needed. Her lab partner, Paul, frowned. "It's a dead end," he said. "Toss it." But Stephanie hesitated. Something in that unassuming goo tugged at her instincts. Years of discipline told her to trust the process, even when the process looked like failure. "No," she said. "Test it." What emerged from the spinneret wasn't just another fiber. It was a revelation. 5 times stronger than steel. Light as a whisper. Tough enough to stop a bullet. They called it Kevlar. At first, it was meant for tires, a practical solution for everyday wear. But destiny had bigger plans. Soon, it was woven into vests that turned bullets into mere thuds. It shielded firefighters from searing flames, astronauts from cosmic debris. It became the invisible armor between life and death. But before any of that, it was a moment of trust. A scientist's stubborn faith in a cloudy solution. A lab partner's willingness to listen. And because of that, because of them, the world became a little safer. Born in the lab, proved in battle. Next, we look at Braille, a friendship that spoke volumes. France, 1812. Darkness fell early for Louis Braille, not just at sunset, but forever. An accident stole his sight at 3 years old. By 12, he could read with his fingers, tracing raised dots pressed into paper, but the system was clumsy, slow, infuriating. Each letter demanded endless patience. Each word felt like a wall. Then came a mentor, a teacher who saw not just a blind boy, but a brilliant mind. "You can do better," he whispered. "You will do better." With that spark of belief, Louis began to reimagine the world at his fingertips. He took night writing, a military code of bumps meant for battlefield messages, and stripped it down to its soul, 6 dots. Just 6. Arranged, combined, transformed. A language waiting to be born. At 15, he perfected it. Braille. Simple. Elegant. Alive under the fingers. His classmates stole lessons, passing the forbidden code like a secret between them. The school banned it, but how could they stop what worked? How could they silence something that felt, for the first time, like freedom? Louis Braille never saw the sun. Never watched a sunset or a storm. But because of him, millions read the storm. The sunset. The world. A boy in darkness who became light for others. Lastly, we conclude this episode with story of the computer mouse, one engineer, one visionary. Stanford Research Institute, 1960s. The future was waiting to be built. Douglas Engelbart stared at the glowing screen, his mind racing. Computers were powerful, but cold, distant. Machines speaking only to technicians. What if they could speak to everyone? What if they felt human? But vision alone wasn't enough. He needed hands, precision, a partner. Enter Bill English, the quiet engineer who could turn sketches into reality. Together, they wrestled with the impossible. How do you point at light? How do you touch information? Nights blurred into days, coffee cups piled up, and then, there it was. A humble block of wood, rough-hewn and unassuming, with 2 metal wheels and a single button. They called it the mouse. December 9, 1968. The mother of all demos. Live on stage, Engelbart's fingers wrapped around that wooden block. The audience leaned forward. The mouse moved, and on the screen, a cursor danced in perfect harmony. Gasps filled the room. A file opened. Text slid across the display. In that moment, the digital world bent to the human hand. No more codes, no more commands, just intention, connection. One visionary, one engineer, one click that changed everything. The mouse wasn't just a tool. It was the first handshake between humans and machines, and the world would never let go. The human spark behind every breakthrough. Listen closely. Can you hear it? The soft hum of a computer fan hides a midnight conversation between two sleep-deprived friends. The rustle of wind through Kitty Hawk's dunes carries the echo of brothers arguing, then agreeing. The click of a Polaroid camera holds a father's patient, "Let's find out," to his daughter's wondering eyes. We like to think invention lives in laboratories, in sterile rooms with blinking lights. But the truth? The spark comes from people. From the mentor who didn't say, "That's impossible," but instead, "Try it again." From the lab partner who trusted a cloudy beaker. From the friend who stayed up coding when everyone else said to quit. The Wright brothers had each other. Stephanie Kwolek had Paul's trust. Louis Braille had his teacher's faith. The greatest inventions aren't just built with equations or code. They're woven from late-night conversations, from hands clasped in solidarity, from that moment when someone looks at your crazy idea and says, "I believe in you." And suddenly, the impossible becomes inevitable. So here's to the believers, the partners, the ones who stand beside the dreamers. Because every world-changing idea begins with two simple words, "What if?" and grows because someone answers. Let's find out. The lost chapters of innovation. History remembers the winners, but what about the visionaries the world wasn't ready for? Next time on Everyday Inventions, we pull back the curtain on ideas that almost changed everything, but didn't, until they did. The blueprints buried in desk drawers. The prototypes that gathered dust. The minds who saw tomorrow, yesterday. Meet the inventors who raced against time itself, only to find the future lagging behind. The woman who designed electric cars, in 1910. The engineer who imagined the internet, when computers filled entire rooms. The doctor whose cure was dismissed, until it wasn't. Because sometimes the most brilliant invention isn't a gadget or a formula, it's patience. The courage to be too early, too bold, too different, and to wait for the world to catch up. Being ahead of your time? That might be the hardest creation of all. Don't miss the next chapter of inventions that refuse to stay forgotten.